We live in an era where, theoretically, your options are infinite. You can hop between careers, curate an entirely new digital identity by the weekend, and adopt lifestyles that cross the globe with a single click. Yet this frictionless world rarely feels like liberation. It breeds a very specific, modern exhaustion. Every decision feels paralyzing, accompanied by a quiet, chronic anxiety that one wrong turn in your career or your relationships will send your whole life off a cliff. This exhaustion is a structural condition. It emerges when the traditional scaffolding of human action is dismantled, leaving a vacuum where social security and predictable routines used to be. In the year 2000, sociologist Zygmunt Bauman published an observation about exactly how we got here. He called our current era liquid modernity. His thesis was that the very nature of society had changed states, moving from a solid, reliable phase into a fluid, restless condition. For generations, the structures of life, a 40-year career at one company, rigid community bonds, strong state institutions, were built to last. They were solid. Now, those solids have melted away, and while they were often restrictive, their absence leaves us drifting through a formless environment, completely on our own. To understand the liquid present, we must look at the solid past. Heavy capitalism relied on a massive physical footprint. A Ford factory tied immovable machinery to a large, localized labor force. Capital and workers were mutually dependent, locked together in one place. This panopticon prison design, with its central guard tower, was Bauman's metaphor for solid power. Control meant pinning people down under a watchful eye, but authorities had to be physically present. Domination required active, continuous engagement. Today, we operate under light capitalism. Wealth is generated through software, mobile ideas, and digital assets. A modern corporation's capital can cross borders at the speed of an electronic signal, owing zero loyalty to any specific local workforce. Power today is post-panoptical. It doesn't need to lock you in a factory or watch your every move. Those holding the strings maintain control simply through their ability to disconnect and abandon the relationship. Domination today is the power to escape. When power becomes untethered and weightless, a specific burden falls down onto the rest of us. Bauman called this the individualization of the human condition. The safety nets that once absorbed the shocks of life, like company pensions, strong labor unions, long-term civic organizations, have systematically evaporated. Yet society expects you to hit the same milestones of success unassisted. Historically, a career was a single linear trajectory, built over decades of mutual loyalty. Now that line splinters into short-term gigs. The market demands constant flexibility from you, but withdraws any long-term security in return. Even our social bonds have thinned out. Durable communities built on mutual obligation have largely been replaced by fleeting digital gatherings. Spaces where we hang up our identities for a moment based on a shared aesthetic or mutual fear, leaving as soon as the trend fades. This is why everyday life feels like an impossible tightrope walk. You are being asked to weave together a stable, cohesive life pattern, but the only materials you are given to do it are fragile, highly privatized, and completely inadequate for the job. We're constantly sold a story that frictionless mobility is the ultimate empowerment. Consumer culture promises that endless choices and absolute flexibility equal true freedom. When you inevitably stumble, when wages stagnate against inflation or you can't afford a home, the system trains you to look inward. It frames structural, macroeconomic failures as a personal lack of drive or a failure to hustle hard enough. You cannot solve systemic contradictions with individual biographical solutions. Working longer hours on a side gig won't fix a crumbling housing market. Bauman looked back to the agora, the ancient Greek model of a physical space where private anxieties are translated into public political issues. It is a space designed to bridge the gap between individual suffering and collective action. In a world that forces everything to flow and shift, making a conscious choice to anchor yourself becomes a form of resistance. Choosing long-term loyalty, sustaining durable relationships, and committing to a community are radical, countercultural acts. Real emancipation doesn't look like an endless pursuit of private self-optimization. It requires us to stop trying to paddle through the liquid alone and start demanding the reconstruction of a collective harbor.